Is Nvidia a good stock to buy right now? Today, we're going to look at some clues to give us some direction on whether we should be holding Nvidia now or in the future. We'll start off with the Nvidia stock price chart. This chart will tell us the trend and momentum behind that price trend. We're looking for clues to see if we should be buying Nvidia now or in the future. Let's get started. Well, as we can see on the Nvidia chart, it's moving in an upward trend. Higher highs, higher lows. We can also see three momentum indicators at the bottom of the chart. Let's zoom in a little bit. The first momentum indicator is a momentum indicator following money flow. Generally speaking, money has been flowing into Nvidia, but you can see it's slowing just a little bit. More importantly is price momentum. Let's take a look at this indicator called the rate of change indicator. Rate of change is the single most simple way of looking at price momentum. It simply compares a period of whatever number of weeks or months ago that you choose to compare to the current price behavior. This momentum indicator I have dialed to show 40-week momentum. What that tells us is, how is the price moving on a momentum basis now compared to 40 weeks ago? Well, as we can see, the price behavior on Nvidia is declining from a momentum point of view. We call this divergence because we've got a price that's going up and we've got momentum on that price falling. That can be a sign that things may be changing for the price behavior in the future. Final thing we'll look at is the RSI momentum indicator, and this is more of a mid-term look at price momentum on Nvidia, and you can see it too is falling. Our next clue on whether we want to be holding Nvidia now is the seasonal chart. This is courtesy of equityclock.com. And what we're doing today is we're comparing Nvidia's price behavior on a seasonal basis to the rest of the technology sector. So unlike my usual look at seasonality, we're looking today at Nvidia versus its peers rather than versus the broad market. Let's take a look. As you can see, in November and December, price behavior is usually quite bullish for Nvidia, even against the technology stock sector. It outperforms its peers. But interestingly enough, after the end of the year, we typically come into a period starting right around February where Nvidia trades about in line with the rest of the technology sector. That's probably why we're starting to see that divergence in the momentum indicators we were just talking about. Momentum is slowing down on price acceleration for Nvidia, although it's still going up. Seasonality tells us that price momentum on Nvidia is likely to slow down a bit sometime in the new year, at least when we compare it to its peers. This next chart is courtesy of sentimenttrader.com. Sentiment Trader offers charts known as optics charts that look at a number of indicators of how investors are viewing stocks or sectors. In this case, we can look at the optics chart for Nvidia, and we can see that investors in general reached a point fairly recently where they were not overly enthusiastic about the stock. When investors are less enthusiastic about a stock, this is a contrarian signal for us to consider moving into the stock. Let's take a look at some history. Back in 2024, in September, we can see that investors were not interested in Nvidia. This lined up perfectly with the low point on the stock. Conversely, about a month before that, in August of 24, we see that investors were very enthusiastic about Nvidia, and that lined up with a peak on the market. You'll see this happen over and over again. Back in June, investors were enthusiastic about Nvidia, and that resulted in a high on the chart. Back in April of 24, investors were less enthusiastic about the stock, and that resulted in a low point. So clearly, when we are looking at a low point in investor enthusiasm, this is actually a clue telling us that Nvidia probably has some more upside left. And that lines up with our bullish looking chart and the seasonality, which usually finishes the year very strongly for Nvidia. The question is, once that excitement ends, what comes next? My view is Nvidia is a good place to invest for the next few months, but at some point we may want to take some profits off the table as it reaches its typical seasonal period of slowdown. Thanks for watching.